Kia ora koutou katoa, no mai haere mai. Welcome to the session this afternoon. We'll start with a small group, but I know that a lot of people join perhaps later or even join online too. In fact, a lot join online. So kia ora to the people who watch this online. And maybe you do what my daughter did with when she was studying. She played the video really, really fast so she could get through it. But hopefully this next hour that I've designed for you, it's a one-off only. Hopefully this next hour is useful for you. I always like to start with a karakia just to open the space that we're in together. And this one is about life force and the earth and sky. And as I look out my window here in Otautahi, I can't see a thing actually. It's just become very foggy, very misty. So I hope it was sunny, but hopefully the weather's nice where you are. Kia ora, Roger, welcome. Manawa mai te mauri I nuku. Manawa mai te mauri rangi. Ko te mauri kai o he mauri tipua ka pakaru mai te pō. Tau mai te mauri, hui e, taiki e. I know many of you know about Aotearoa, but just in case, we always are promoting the fact that Aotearoa is a national organisation that you can join and connect to other educators who teach adults. And when you join, you get an e-news and quarterly newsletter. You get opportunities to go to Hui Whānau and a national conference. And then coming up in September is the Festival of Adult Learning, or as it's known again now as Adult Learners Week. So do have a look on the website there. You'll get more information. Kawaio, I know I recognise a few of your names here, but in case you don't know me, that's me in the middle there. I take a masterclass with Tai and Teatahia, and that photo is of us at a masterclass session last year. So I am a contractor for Aotearoa as their teaching standards advisor. And I have a background of working in various adult education environments, including Christchurch Women's Prison, the University of Canterbury, the Polytech in Christchurch, and Ako Aotearoa, where I'm currently manager for the southern region. This is our kaupapa, our contents today. This is what we'll have a look at. We'll have an opportunity for whakawhanaungatanga, the chance to sort of connect with each other. And then in accordance with the teaching standard today, that's what has set today's session. It's about intergenerational teaching. It's also about societal change. It's a little bit about inclusion and learner-centeredness. And then there'll be a reflection activity at the end and a chance to fill in an online evaluation. So as I know many of you have done before, could you please write in the chat, because that's really helpful to see your name, your role and your location. Okay, so today's session is called Learning Across the Ages, How to Build Inclusive Societal-Centered Learning Opportunities. And this is the first session or the first time that I've really had an opportunity to talk about this this indicator from the teaching standards, because it is one of the newer ones that we added in the last year. So this session is a chance to really talk about this indicator and what it means to you. And I've done some work around it, but I'll be really interested in what you think about it. So here's the full teaching standard there. And that is telling you there that as a tutor, if you want to have a sense of improvement, the indicators can advise us or guide us into how to be a better tutor. So this one, 6.2, is about providing opportunities for learning that are intergenerational, they're learner-centered, and or address societal needs. As it happens, because ACE talks a lot about learner-centered behaviours, I've really focused this session more on intergenerational learning and thinking about addressing societal needs. So I'll be interested in your feedback around that. I thought I'd start with a bit of a fun slide and then thinking about societal change, because when I was doing some research for this workshop, um, I realised that actually a lot has changed even in the time that I've been working in the adult and community education sector. So that's from the late 80s. I know, a long time ago, isn't it? I dare to say, when I first started as a tutor at the women's prison here. But it certainly was in 1876, but it was in a little bit after 83. But I just thought the graphic there just reminded me just how much society has changed. And when I thought about societal change, and particularly um, later on in regards to education, but in life in general, I think for me, since the 90s, thousands, there's been a lot more use of te reo Māori and tikanga Māori, particularly in teaching, but also in life, actually. I notice I have children who are 28 and 26, and they have a lot more societal knowledge about tikanga than I know I probably did when I was their age. So they have picked up little things like not sitting on tables, for example. So it's all very much part of their upbringing now, whereas I think society wasn't as aware of tikanga, certainly when I was young or their age. As we all know, use of phones has increased incredibly, and quite different from the sorts of phone calls that I might have once used when everyone could hear me. The use of texting, messaging, etc., has completely changed society. And we're right in the middle of artificial intelligence, AI, societal change too. And I know many of you are embracing AI, or not, but noticing the changes that happen too in life thanks to AI, the changes that people are utilizing it for. And then we have the changes in society from the point of view of accessibility. And, for people with disabilities, or neurodiverse challenges, there's a lot more access. The library are having quiet hours, movies, providing access for people with autism. There's better access to all services in towns and cities now. And there's a lot more digital equity available as well, as it seems like once upon a time we couldn't talk about laptops or computers because not everyone had them. And whilst not everyone does today, pretty much everyone has access to some kind of digital device. So they're just a few. There's probably more. I mean, feel free to share verbally, if you'd like to, or also in the chat if there's something that you think I've really missed there that's been a huge change in society. I also did some research into changes in education, and again, for me, these terms here are pretty in common use now, but once upon a time were very rarely talked about. So andragogy probably has been around since the 60s, but certainly I didn't know of it until I did my own study about adult teaching and learning. So andragogy is the science and art of adults learning. Lifelong learning has been, flavour of the month and not flavour of the month worldwide, nationally. But it's, a lot more people know about lifelong learning and included in their mission statements, included in their ways of working. Self-directed learning, prior learning, again, these terms weren't around back in the day. Micro learning certainly wasn't around blended learning wasn't around, and flexible learning. So these are all words that have come into society, into our way, into our world with education. And it'll be interesting to see if they've made what difference they make to you and your teaching, um, and what difference, it means for you, for your learners too. So just one other slide here about change, and was around Te Reo language, the Te Reo Māori, beg your pardon, language. And I thought that these words have become quite commonplace. So wānanga, and that can be around the actual site of learning, the te wānanga or Aotearoa, or it can be the wānanga for a learning opportunity for, getting together and learning together. Te reo Māori is used a lot, actually, as in the term, and the language is used. You hear it all the time on radio, hear it all the time on TV. Cultural competence has crept into our language as well, and a lot of people need to be competent. I guess it was a little bit more so before this current government, but at the same time, a lot of people are very aware of becoming culturally competent in whatever job they're in. So that's a real societal change. Tauiwi is the term given to people who are not tangata whenua, who are not from this land, who are people who are new to New Zealand, who are here, came after the tangata whenua, the original inhabitants. And oftentimes too, we talk about treaty-based practice. So just some terms there that I think have crept into our language and impact our society now. But perhaps these are not the same for you, but there was just some that I picked up that I thought were ones that are commonplace today. So looking up a definition of what are societal needs, I came across this: the fundamental conditions and resources required for a community or population to thrive, function well, and ensure the well-being of its members. And then further to that, these needs are collective rather than individual and are essential for maintaining social stability, equity, and quality of life. So quite a lot there for us that to have a responsibility for. And I certainly find this indicator a challenging one because it reminds me of just how much we can do as an educator and yet not do. We can't be responsible all of the time for maintaining social stability, equity, and quality of life, and yet we contribute to it, I think, in a huge way as an adult educator. But we certainly are doing what it says there. We are providing conditions, we're providing resources, we're helping a country, a community, a population thrive, function, and ensure its well-being. So you do play a key part in the work that you do. And so that's why it's seen as a key indicator for adult educators, because we're really working on societal needs. I don't want to go too deep into this conversation, but it did occur to me that it may be interesting to think about what are society needs and how do you address them. So I've talked about some there, but the graphic on the right there is also a reminder to me that, who is your society? Is it global? Is it national? Is it your formal organizations? Is it places like ACE Aotearoa? Or is it really the people that you work with, the people in your community, your whānau, your extended family, your immediate family, and then this one is focused on the young person, but of course it's people full stop. So keep that in mind. I will ask you again, how do you address society needs? Because it is one that we probably do in our teaching, but we're never really sure on that we are doing that. We're often focused on curriculum, on other standards rather than societal needs. I did a search for some information around society-centered learning needs for adults, and came up with a list that I am sharing with you here. These are 3, and there's another 4 on the next slide. Beg your pardon, another 5. So this research suggests that in our country, these are our key society-centred needs, and it's appropriate that they start with te tiriti or waitangi. There you have cultural competency and inclusion. And then it moves to civic and community literacy, which has always been a key part of the ACE sector, but sometimes is only comes to prominence when it's times for local government elections, that sort of thing. But it's certainly in the past been a key focus area for ACE Aotearoa. Here's the other 5 now I just want to share with you. So we're moving to financial and economic literacy, which makes sense, and more literacy around digital and media. We talk about workplace and lifelong learning as a key societal need, very much sustainability and environmental awareness. Then we have health and well-being. And last but not least is the idea of social connection and belonging. So as you can see, these are all key societal needs that I know that ACE Aotearoa addresses. And this is, of course, what you're addressing. You address those 3, and equally you address these 5 as well. Is there anything there that you think you prioritize in your teaching? Any one of those you would prioritize? Just another piece of research here, and this one is around the role of education in creating social impact. And I'm sure you know of these 5 points here, that education is a catalyst for social change. And many of us know that things like the literacy movement mean that learners change and become changed as a result of their learning how to read and write, and equally for a whole range of other programs as well. Learning helps people change in society. It helps them become empowered in particularly marginalised communities. It promotes gender equity, or it aims to promote gender equity. I think a key one today when we talk about AI is that actually education is fostering critical thinking and problem solving skills. And I think sometimes this one is overlooked, and people just think answers can be found through AI and that's all I need. But actually, the key to using AI is being able to think critically and problem solve. And then the last one, but not least, is thinking about education for sustainable development. So I'm going to take a bit of a switch now from societal needs. So it's quite full on, isn't it? Societal needs, or not full on, but it's quite academic and intellectual to be thinking about all of the things that we're addressing in the name of societal needs, beg your pardon. But equally, this indicator is also talking about intergenerational change. And I've just got a couple of, say, fun slides really here, inviting us to think about intergenerational change and which one came first. And I get caught out occasionally with this because I do teach people who've never seen an audio cassette. Uh, but according to this list, if you think about a Walkman, an iPod, a Spotify, a record player, and an audio cassette, would you mind telling me which one you think comes first out of that list, please? So that's just one slide of intergenerational change and things in the music industry. What about this one here? What's the right order here? So we have the Rubik's Cube, we have Frisbee, and then the roller skates. Then we have a BMX bike, and then last but not least, we have Fortnite, which does stand out and look different from the others, I know. But what do you think the order is here? What came first? So after Frisbee, we've got roller skates, BMX bike, Frisbee, Rubik's, and then last but not least must be the game Fortnite. Yeah. So it's just a warm up to intergenerational change, and the differences that many of us, I know I've experienced all of those in my lifetime. Is that something telling you something? But yeah, just how we can all have intergenerational change throughout their lives and what that means for us in life, but also what it means for us with our teaching, which I'll move on to shortly. So I found this graphic here really useful for thinking about definitions of the generations. And this may be one that you're familiar with as well. Some of these terms I actually hadn't heard that often, particularly the builders. So they are people, you can see there when they were born and they're in 80 plus. Certainly I'm not very familiar with the boomers there. And probably, yes, and definitely am one of the boomers. That tells you my age, right? Then we have Generation X. Uh, uh, so there you can see their ages a little bit younger then, and then we move to Generation Y. Sometimes the Generation Ys are called the millennials, and then we have Generation Z, which I've heard of, but not these last two, Generation Alpha and Generation Beta. So that just gives you a sense of the range there. So shortly I'll ask you some questions about which generation, um, well, in fact, I will now. Which generation do you find hardest to work with? So sometimes we find the ones that are older than us difficult to work with, and then vice versa, we find the ones that are younger than us difficult to work with. I'll just come back to that other slide there. But I was interested, that's where I've, thought about this is, what age group are you from? Can you identify yourself there? And what age group do you work with? And is there an age group that you're challenged by? And you certainly shared the ones that you're challenged by. Are they the same age group that you work with? There was just a few more words since the 80s. So just to set the scene again, thinking about all these different words that are now part of today's generation that weren't part of my generation. So maybe I'm taking a boomer approach here, but I just wanted to really share, just how many words have come into our everyday language, Wi-Fi in particular, email. Can we remember the day when we never said the word email? And some of these words, influencer, webinar, etc., we're having today, are totally new words that have crept into our society, have crept into our language, crept into the way that we work in this generation. We've talked about this, and even difference in our teaching. Does anyone know what that machine is in the graphic? I guess Stetner, or was it a Bander machine? I don't know which one was which, but back in the day, tell us about it, Roger. What did you use
I,
that
I
for?
think there was a smell of methylated spirits
Yep, yep,
um, that you got all over you, the black ink. So it was a early photocopier, I suppose.
yeah, yeah,
Used to
yeah,
produce newsletters and education wise, sheets for handouts. And
yeah. Yeah, so life has really changed and become much easier, or has it? With the use of technology, with the use of computers. But that was the way that handouts, newsletters, anything on paper was used. So language used, we've talked about that. Resources used. Anything that you think has made is different from your teaching back in the day, whether it was with small groups, with adults, or the children? Is there anything that's different today that you didn't used to do?
Yeah, when exactly what we're doing today is there's so much potential, particularly if you're working in rural areas, of
Yes,
doing things online. And I'm
yes, yeah,
finding I spend a bit of time in the Wairarapa that people say, "Oh, you're never available for a meeting." And I say, "Hello, I'm available 24/7. I'm online
yeah,
all the time." So it's
yeah,
just getting people's head round that learning
yes,
doesn't need to take place in face to face. It can
that's
be,
right.
to me, it's changed community education in a
Yeah, yeah,
massive way.
yes, absolutely, yeah. So quite different in according to what generation you're in, what generation you started teaching. So here's an opportunity now to talk together. I don't mind what of these you talk about. You can talk about both, you can talk about one. But what I'm interested in is you having a chance to talk about what you notice about how different generations communicate with each other and what that means for you. Like when you're teaching, does it mean you need to send an email or do you need to write out on a written piece of paper for people information? And then the second question is, how do you deal with the differences between the education you had at school and what younger learners are taught today? So again, when you're teaching, uh, are there things that you assume your learners know, and yet they come to you and they've never heard of things like Cuisenaire rods, for an example? I mean, I know that's a bit of an old school one, but back in the day, people learnt the power of one by using Cuisenaire rods to count up to 10 because each rod had a different color, a different length, and it gave you an opportunity to learn the numbers. I think it taught bases and things like that. It was basically assisted with the principles of multiplication. I think that's what they were mainly used for, but then they were taken over by, well, not taken over, but they were utilised by the Te Tārangi movement, which was around teaching people to reo Māori, and they used the Cuisenaire rods for for connection of te reo words. So one rod meant one word or phrase, etc. So it's had a new resurgence. I think back in the 90s that was. So back in the 60s they were used, the Cuisenaire rods for maths in schools, and then changed later to become adapted by mainly adult education and the Te Tārangi movement. So there are some changes that I've noticed over the years, and I am aware of my language and try not to assume that people know what I'm talking about when I mention things like Cuisenaire rods, for example. So, in your group, and you'll just have a short time today, just 5 minutes. Just introduce yourself and talk a little about generational change. What does it mean for you? So let's just carry on and have a little look more about this. So I did say we talk a little bit about inclusion. Again, inclusion is something that I think we do really well in adult and community education. We provide equal access, we foster intercultural understanding, we work with critical thinking and problem solving, we encourage lifelong learning, and we engage the community. So we are all doing that in our own roles as educators in the ACE sector, but I thought I'd bring it together with that graphic, which I thought was really helpful with thinking about what do you do as far as being addressing societal needs and building inclusive societies. So we're coming to the end now of our session this afternoon, and always I invite you to think about, so what will you do after today? Hopefully in this short hour, there's been some ideas for you to think about as far as intergenerational differences when you teach, and also some ideas about building more societal centered learning opportunities into your teaching. So just have a think about that now, and are there any things that spring to mind that you will do that's different as a result of some of the prompts I've given you, some of the research I've shared, and some of the conversations you've had? I try and do my research ahead of time and find the language that will fit, but also I try not to make assumptions when I'm working with different generations and also different societal um, groups too. So, and where possible, I try to be societal centered and offer those learning opportunities, building, um, building learner centered and societal centered. Mea karata kia tātou, kua mutu a mātou mahi, mō tēnei wā, manakitia mai mātou katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whānau, ao ki te aorangi.